Calling all vocalists! In this video, I'm going to show you how to elevate your vocal recordings with these quick tips. From choosing the right mic and nailing recording techniques, to crafting a killer recording chain and adding post-recording magic, I've got you covered. So let's get into it. When recording, you need to think about the style of your vocal in these sections. In verses, commonly you might be a bit closer to the microphone because you're singing more intimately and less loud. But when you're belting it out for hooks and choruses, consider being further away from the microphone. You don't want to keep riding the levels constantly. So when you're quiet, you're turning it up, etc. That will make things much harder when you're editing afterwards. So just be mindful of just easing off between the distance between the microphone and yourself, according to how loudly you're singing. Everyone likes to record their vocals differently. Some vocalists like to go from the beginning to the end, all the way through the track. But personally, I like to be slightly more precise with myself and concentrate section by section. So for example, a verse is more intimate and close up. So I would loop something like the verse so that I can do the more intimate takes of the verse and then loop the chorus when I'm kind of belting it out and using much louder vocal styles. Once I've got enough takes, but I haven't exhausted myself, I'll go into the take lanes to have a look at all the takes I've done. The way of doing this on Ableton Live is making sure that the automation mode is off, because when that's on, there's a different view and there's different functions here. So I'm making sure that's off, and I'm going to right click on the vocal channel that I've recorded into and go down here to show take lanes. Now this is showing all of them in order. So that was the first one I recorded, that's the second one I recorded, third one I recorded, fourth one I recorded. So the takes go on, and you can see where I've gone in on certain bits again and again and again. Here in the verse, I did a fair few takes. We'll have a cheap laugh and listen to some of these. So I'm just going to loop it. And what I can do to listen to each one, because remember, this is my main, the colorful one here is going to be the end result. But I'm going to use the takes down here to cobble together the best of all of these. Sometimes I'll be breathing funnily, sometimes I won't quite hit a note, sometimes the lyric might be a little bit garbled. So basically I'll use these take lanes and go through each one to listen to the best.
You never made me doubt a single word was true. And no.
A bit late on that one, I'm going to try the next one.
You never made me doubt a single word was true. And no.
I'll just keep going through until I hear ones that I like.
You never made me doubt a single word was true.
I like that airiness of that bit there. So basically what I'll do to put these vocals together is I will just select the bits I like.
Single word was true. Single word was true.
That bit I like. And I'll just literally press enter. And what that'll do is it will glue just this bit that I've asked it to do up here. And it will apply really, really intelligent crossfading between them. So it will smoothly move between each of these clips as I glue them together. It's really good practice to be able to sing it again and again identically. And I can see how precise I start to get later on, where all of these waveforms start to really resemble each other. You can see some are slightly different shapes, some are too quiet, etc. So it's a really great practice in doing that. And as I go through, and I really can be I just loop sections like this. I'll go through really precisely, pick my favorites, press enter, and glue them all together until I've got the take that I want. Once that's done, I remember to take that off. And now when I collapse the show take lanes, I'm just left with the take that I wanted. A lot of vocalists, or people who are recording vocals, like to make what's called a recording chain. The reason it's called a chain, it's a chain of devices that boost the vocals and get the best kind of sound out of them. I find this helps to do sometimes before I record so that I can really hear clearly what I'm singing and like hear that precision of how I need to open my throat out and kind of make it more airy, or if I need to make it slightly more subdued, I can hear that really clearly. The first thing I would apply is EQ. EQ is how I boost higher ends or get rid of some lower frequencies that I don't need, and it cleans up some sonic space for the other instruments that are going to be in this track. Because my vocals are kind of alto all the way up on this, much higher vocals, I don't really need the lower end, which is on the left-hand side here. So all these lows are where things like bass, kick, all of the lower instruments reside. So there's no point me keeping that part of this frequency range in there because the microphone will pick up everything. So I can just carve that away and it leaves room for the other instruments. So you can hear on this, I'm just soloing up this bit of the vocal. I'm just going to loop it.
You never made me doubt a
And you can
single
hear,
word was true.
look what happens when I boost
You
the
never made me doubt a single
higher end.
word was true. You never made me
Gonna get rid of these ones. Can hear that really clearing up.
Never made me doubt a single word was true.
It's kind of just like the best of the vocals. It's not deleting those, it's still recording them, but it means that it's basically a type of filter. So it's filtering out the bits that I don't need to hear, and it's boosting the parts of my voice, the resonance of my voice that I really want to focus on and make sure that I can hear clearly as I'm recording. I've also added a compressor, which is fairly common. Applying compression to vocals is fairly crucial because it controls the levels when I go too faint or when I go too loud, and kind of optimizes it and keeps everything around the same area. You'll find that when you're jumping up from like a quiet, intimate vocal where it's down in the verse, or all the way up to belting things out, you just need something to make sure that it kind of manages the dynamic range and keeps everything under control and not going into the red or peaking to the point where it's distorted and you can't use the take. I've set the ratio fairly high to a standard 4, which just means that it's compressing quite a powerful amount, not too much though. The attack leaves a little bit of time, so when the vocals first come in, it doesn't instantly start applying compression. It gives it like a millisecond before it kicks in. And then here, release is a fairly standard default setting for the release. It doesn't need to be wildly late, but it doesn't need to be right at the minute that it drops. It doesn't need to drop too instantly because we'd start to hear clicking and kind of weirdness there. And I've set it to the dry wet to about there. You can have it 100%, but I like to just kind of rein things back a little bit at this point. And I've asked the compression to just focus on the peaks, so the peaks of the actual vocal, rather than some of the other means of compression.
You never made me doubt a single word was true.
The threshold's around there. I can see where it's jumping.
Never made me doubt a single word was true.
So I'd probably get the arrow to around the top of where it peaks at this point. And you can see here how much gain reduction is being used.
You never made me doubt a single word was true.
Every time it goes over the threshold, the gain reduction kicks in and shows in yellow that it's doing its thing. You can hear there's other effects going on. I'm using sends and returns to just add a bit of flavor to it. I quite like singing to effects sometimes, but that can be distracting, so don't feel you always have to do that. But I would definitely recommend maybe I've put a cute Valhalla reverb on here, just to give it that spaciness, and just make me feel a bit more epic while I'm singing.
You never made me doubt a single word was true.
Oh yeah, this is a kind of chorus effect I've put on.
You never made me doubt a single word was true. You never made me doubt a single...
Nice. What I would say is keep the reverb subtle while you're recording. You can do things after you've recorded, but if you go too hard on it when you're recording, it can get distracting, and you want to be able to still see the main perspective and like the bigger picture of the track as you're at this stage. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you want access to further tips and more resources, then simply tap the link below.